Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jonathan with the RIDESHARE panel, and today we're going to be talking about how to do taxes as a Lyft or Uber driver. So not exactly the most fun topic, but I have a few awesome tips for you. They're going to make this so much easier, and once you figure out how to address this issue of taxes, it's going to take a huge load off your shoulders. So when you work in the on-demand economy as a Lyft or Uber driver, you are an independent contractor, which means at the end of the year you get a 1099 and you get to pay 30% on everything you earn during the year. Lyft and Uber are great about giving you instant pay. You get that money quickly, but you got to remember that you're going to have to pay a lot of that back at the end of the year. The first thing that you can do to kind of make keeping track of your expenses and earnings easier is to get a separate bank account just for Lyft and Uber earnings. So you're going to want to connect this to make sure that all of your weekly or bi-weekly deposits are sent directly to that account. And then you're going to want to take any expenses, whether that's maintenance, gas, car washes, oil changes, and you're going to want to expense all of those only through that account. That's one way to go about it. Another way is to get a credit card, which I actually like a little bit better because then you can get some rewards on that credit card and maybe get a little bit of cash back on those expenses when you're paying for anything. When it comes to tracking expenses as an Uber and Lyft driver, you have a couple of different options. The first is to use the standard mileage rate that's provided to you by the IRS, and that comes out to be about 54.5 cents per mile in 2018. Now, you can also keep track of all of your maintenance and vehicle repairs and depreciate your vehicle over a yearly basis, but most tax professionals actually recommend taking the standard mileage rate. Now, whether you decide to use the standard mileage rate or keep track of all of your vehicle expenses yourself and deduct those yourself, you actually get to deduct any other ordinary business expenses on top of those. And those would include stuff like a cell phone that you use to drive, any other vehicle equipment that you might need as a driver, such as a cell phone holder or maybe drinks for passengers. And you can also deduct any car washes that you're using while you're driving for Lyft and Uber. Another expense that rideshare drivers commonly miss is the fees that Lyft and Uber charge on their platform for every ride that you give. So when you look at your tax documents at the end of the year for Lyft and Uber, you'll see a gross earnings section, and then you'll usually see a fees section underneath that. You want to make sure that you're adding those fees to your expenses as a rideshare driver. Another way to approach taxes is to use QuickBooks Self-Employed. So I started using this early on after using the credit card method for a while because I realized that I wanted to own my own business and that I was going to have a lot of different streams of income other than just Lyft and Uber, and I wanted to really separate those out and see what I was making through each segment of my business. So the great thing about QuickBooks Self-Employed is that it allows you to categorize your expenses and your earnings, which is great if you're not actually opening up a separate bank account or having a separate credit card. And that way you can kind of just review through all of your recent spending and earnings and categorize which of those are for your business or for your 1099 income and which of those are personal. It also allows you to apply certain rules to your income and your expenses and apply those rules to past historical charges and earnings. So that way if you're constantly getting something like a deposit from Lyft, then QuickBooks can automatically just categorize that and put that into your 1099 income for you, which takes a huge load off of your shoulders as opposed to doing that yourself. So if you've been keeping track of your earnings all year, either you're doing that through QuickBooks or a separate account, bank account or credit card, at the end of the year, come tax time, you're going to have to kind of go through some stuff and figure out, how much your expenses are and how much you're going to have to pay back at the end of the year. So there's a couple different ways to approach this, and one of the ways is to kind of hire a tax accountant to do that for you. But as a rideshare driver, I always like to approach things as, in the most cost-efficient way possible, and it's actually not that hard to go ahead and do taxes yourself, assuming that you've kept your records, pretty tidy throughout the year. So what I like to do is I like to use TurboTax for that, and I kind of just, filter in my QuickBooks Self-Employed numbers, and it pulls everything for the most part for me, and then runs me through like a set of a ton of questions that it asks me to kind of prompt me through categorizing, what's what and what type of deductions I get to apply to my total earnings. Doing your own taxes through TurboTax at the end of the year can be quite intimidating. Even if you go through all the right precautions of kind of categorizing your expenses throughout the year and you're using QuickBooks Self-Employed, you still might not be sure that you have the right number. So here's a quick trick that I use to kind of verify that everything is right and I know that I'm paying the right amount at the end of the year. So what I do is I sign up for a free tax session at H&R Block, and they will take all of your numbers, kind of run through it and figure out what you owe. They have a system that they use. It's kind of similar to QuickBooks Self-Employed, but it's their own system, and they will take that and spit out a number and tell you what you owe. The cool thing about this free session is that they will actually give you that number and you can see what you owe, and you don't actually pay anything unless you want them to file your taxes through them. So take this number that you get from H&R Block and see if it lines up with the number that you got when you did your own taxes through TurboTaxes. If it is, then you're good to go. You don't have to pay for the session at H&R Block, and you know that you're paying the right amount. If it doesn't line up, then you probably need some help with your taxes. So I would recommend either paying H&R Block to do the taxes for you and file for you, or kind of looking at your taxes again yourself and finding someone else to help you out.